Hey guys, so I've made this recording. I mean, I've been painting it and everything like that like 3 times, literally 3 times today. And I've always had something go wrong. So I had animals, visitors, phone calls, you name it, it's happened. I mean, my dog has been trying to eat the cat's poop, for goodness sake. Come on, come on. And it's driving me nuts. So instead of just stopping and repainting the whole thing, I even had problems with the sound. The snowball wasn't picking up. My camera was the one that was picking up. So please forgive me for this, but I'm not going to repaint this again. It's driving me insane. So I'm just going to kind of watch the video with you guys, and hopefully I can take you through it and tell you exactly what I was going to be doing. But it's going to be material, which I'm going to try to start doing a little bit more of on my channel every now and then. And the first material that we're going to be doing is we're going to do like amphibian skin. So I'm really just going to kind of watch this video with you guys, and hopefully that will be good enough. So let's get started. So the first thing I've done is I've just made a little background, kind of like a background, concept background, or what have you. I grabbed my circle marquee tool, and you can control your marquee tool with your space bar. You know, if you want to move your marquee tool around, if you want to make a perfect circle, then you're going to be hitting shift as you do it. Here I'm taking my paint bucket tool, and for me my shortcut is Command G for the paint bucket, and I'm just filling this in. In a second I realized that I don't want a perfect circle. I actually want a bumpy circle. So I come back here in a second, I do that. So I wouldn't even be paying attention to this right here. I'm so mad. I'm so mad because today's been absolutely nuts, and I swear I hope this one actually works out. Please let the sound for this actually work. So here I'm doing a clipping mask, and I'm about to add some lighting with a soft round brush, and I'm kind of showing what a clipping mask does. I can paint outside of a clipping mask, and then, you know, it doesn't really matter because it's clipped to the circle itself. So I'm just really adding the main light source to the sphere right now. Like I said, here in a second I'm going to realize, oh no, I want this to be bumpy. So I go back. So I'm just still kind of waiting to see when I'm going to decide to do that, which is right now. And with my lasso tool, this is what I do. I hold down shift, and I'm just making my selections around the outside of the circle, and then I connect it to the rest of it. I actually use the lasso tool quite often. So if you don't know how to use the lasso tool, I have a tutorial somewhere on my YouTube channel. You should check it out. Man, it comes in handy. It's an awesome tool to be able to use and know what you're doing with. So that's all I'm doing right now, is I'm going around the circle, and I'm just making it where it's going to be more of a bumpy texture, since we're going to be doing like a skin, and it's a bumpy sort of skin. So how many of you guys have dogs that like to eat cat poop? I left the studio here, and outside my door, you know, you have the rest of life takes place where cat litter boxes and things like that, and of course my dog is like half her body is inside the litter box. Oh man, life. So anyway, I'm just gonna go back to my layer and use the paint bucket tool to fill in the rest of these spaces. You could have, you know, used a brush or whatever to do it, but I think I zoom in here and I look at it. Or was that another painting? I'm moving around my highlight here, my light source, just to kind of see if that's the right spot that I want it in. And yeah, maybe making it a little bit brighter, slightly different tone. Put some down at the bottom for like bounce lighting, and then I'll add a little bit of that gray tone from, you know, the floor and to make it look a little bit more realistic for the bounce, how lighting would bounce off of something. Because obviously whatever color the light is, you're going to get that, but you're also going to get the surface color as well. So that's why I was kind of mixing that together. Let's see what's happening now. I merged them all down. Okay, for that I just selected them all, and then I did Command E. And I'm selecting, so the brushes that I use in this are, they're custom brushes. I made them myself. Here I'm just adding some texture to the sphere to add just a little bit more texture. So I just paint all the way across it, and I'm going to use a warp tool here in a second. But I'm just kind of, it's not going to be anything huge. I'm just trying to add a little bit more color variation and texture. So because skin is, you know, it's not this perfect smooth thing, you know, regardless. And even amphibian skin, you know, you have different variations of skin within it. So here we go, warp. Command warp, and I'm just pulling in the sides of this just to get it to fit. And when you do that, it kind of makes that sides look like it's actually rounding. So that's kind of like that illusion. And then I'm pulling out the middle, which makes it bigger, which makes it look like it's a little bit closer to you. So gives that illusion of something rounding an object. I did a clipping mask, so I clipped to it. That way you can only see what it's clipped to. I turn it into a screen, and I'm lowering the opacity right now because it doesn't have to be anything huge. I'm going to blur this out, so I go to blur, Gaussian blur, and then I'm just kind of playing around with the radius of that of the blurring tool. See how much I want to add to it. And then I merged it down. Good times. All right, good times. Okay, I think now I'm gonna grab another of my custom brushes. I made this brush from a picture online, and just kind of messed around with it until I got it the way I wanted to in order to do this tutorial. So that's pretty much what it looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint across, and then I'm going to duplicate that layer, and I use Command J to duplicate the layer. And then I'm going to hit V and move that particular layer up, as you can see right there. And then I'm going to merge those down. I do a Command E, merge them down. And then I do the same thing, Command J, duplicate that layer, and I move that up. V, and I hold down Shift, and I move that up. And that's about it, and I think I merged that down too. Yep. So now I move it around, and I'm going to warp this also, just like I did the last texture. Good times. I actually really feel bad about this because I was trying to do this, the tutorial while, and just everything was just going nuts today, man. Like I said, if this doesn't work, I may just like throw all of my stuff out the window because I'm so mad. So yeah, I'm warping this the same way that I did the last texture. And I hit enter here in a second, and then I try to warp it again. So it kind of resets. It doesn't reset the whole thing, but it resets the warping box. So you can do that as many times as you want to anytime you're working with warp. And just messing with that, trying to get it the way I want it to look. Stretching out the center. All my animals are being quiet right now, knock on wood. It's amazing. I have a few cats and dogs, and man. If you guys record and you guys do this, please comment and tell me about how bad it is if you guys have animals, because I would love to feel like I'm not the only one out there that this happens to. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm adding a white layer underneath my my texture, my scale texture. I make a mistake and I select one thing here in a second, but I'm going to end up selecting the green ball itself and then inversing that selection and deleting it, so I only get the inside of the ball as white. There's a few different ways that you could have done this, and you know, I can think of 3 right now, but this is just the way I did this on the video. So yeah, obviously I'm talking as I'm doing this because I was talking when I was doing it, so you'll see me kind of hover around certain objects. So anyway, I did that. I selected that. Now I'm going to select the texture, and you'll see that all the black areas are selected. But I'm going to go to the white layer, the layer that's white. Then I go to Select, Modify, Expand. You know, I do select it like 5, yeah. And then I hit Delete, I believe. I'm not happy with how that is, so I want to make these white areas smaller. So I do it again, but you can't do it the same way once you do that, because I'll select it, instead of expand I have to contract it. So we'll see that here in a second in order to get rid of that white. So I selected the white layer, I go to modify, and I did expand, and you'll see I realized that does not work out. So you have to go to modify, contract, since I'd done that previously, and then I do like 2 and then hit delete. Oh yeah, I got to do an inverse. There we go. That's better. So what this was for is just to do the show a little bit of lighting from the main light source coming in. A little bit faster way to do it instead of doing every single one of these individually. It's just to kind of help give it a little bit. I'm moving it around right here so you can see that what it looks like, but it helps to kind of give that green, the rounded look that we're looking for. So I'm going to move these up towards the light source. So I actually take my V, I hit V, and then with my arrow keys I nudge it and I go up and towards my light source a little bit. And then I go to layer. Oh wait, is that right? What am I doing? Oh, filter. Okay. Filter, Gaussian blur. And then I'm going to blur this out. That way it makes it more like the different bumps are actually rounded and you don't have that really hard edge. So I'm just kind of playing that with that right now. And I turn the white layer and the dark texture layer, I turned that into clipping masks. Now I'm going to change both those 2 layers into soft light layers. Okay, now I'm getting ready to add a mask to, actually I add a mask to both of these layers, and what it does is the texture, what it looks like to be cracks, I don't want it to be dark everywhere. So it goes back to making it look more 3-dimensional. So where the light is hitting it, you have to imagine how the light won't be into that shadow as hard as it would be on the shadow side. So I add a mask to it, and I'm kind of erasing out a little bit of that darkness. So it looks like the light source is washing it out, washing out the shadows. So that's what I'm doing here. And I play with it a little bit. And here's the good thing about a mask. If I decided to do this with an eraser and I later find out that I messed up, like I don't like it, then I'm kind of screwed. So with a mask, what it allows you to do is it's a non-destructive way to erase. And I think that's the best way to put it, a non-destructive way to erase. Because erasing is destructive. You're destroying whatever it is, you know. You put it in there, you erase it out, and you've destroyed it. With a mask, you can always put it right back in. That's what's nice about a mask. So right there, that's what I'm doing. I'm kind of playing with it. In the darker areas, I kind of leave it, but I make it kind of like a gradient going into the light, with kind of erasing it out in the lighter area. And then I'm going to do something similar with the white, the white that we did, except I'm going to erase that out of the shadow area. And that's what I'm doing right here, erasing those out of the shadow area. And I think in a second I don't like it exactly, so I get back into it and I start messing with that, the light where the main light source would be. So I start messing with that mask again. And that's what a lot of all these things are, is you just kind of keep playing with it until you're happy with what you're getting. So yeah, and I'm just kind of going back and forth with the masks, figuring out what I want. And like I said, the masks are awesome on this. You know, it kind of saves your butt from making a bad mistake and then having to almost start all over. So, learn masks. That's a good thing. Learn them. Learn how to use them. And if you don't know how to use them, comment and maybe I'll do a tutorial on how to use them. Or at least a little bit better understanding of how to use them. So, you know, let me know. Okay, here I think I'm doing another layer just to give the ball underneath the texture and that white layer. I'm giving that a little bit more light, so it looks a little bit better. And that, once again, that's why layering is awesome, is because you can kind of do that. If you have all this merged down, you're shooting yourself in the foot and the face and in the computer. I don't know. Let's see. What am I doing? What am I doing here? Oh, so I'm getting ready to add the highlights, and then I'm going to fast forward this here in a second. But the highlights, what I do is I just go get a round hard brush, and then I hit the that little icon up there that makes it more shape dynamic. So if I'm lightly touching it, it's going to be very small, and the harder I press, it's going to be a little bit thicker. So that's what I'm doing right here, is I'm adding highlights with that hard round brush with the shape dynamic selected at the top. And I show this for a second, and then I'm going to fast forward this so you don't have to sit through, you know, how boring it is to do this. And this, you can really spend a lot of time on this. I'm not sure how long I spent on it, really 10 or 15 minutes, I think, when I was, you know, originally doing this without, you know, speeding it up. But and another thing is, while I was doing this, I'm looking at reference. You know, I look over at reference on another monitor that I have, so I can see and try to make it a little bit more realistic. So I'll paint and look over, paint and look over. So don't be afraid to use reference. And what you'll see in here is not only am I hitting the roundness, the convex, but I'm also hitting the concave. And what I mean by that is you'll see me paint inside these little gaps, the little gaps in between. And if you ever look at, you know, you look at somebody's eye and you get a reflection off of it, right? But what if you have a bowl in the side of the bowl, you're going to get a reflection also in that curved area. So that's what I'm doing here is I'm, along with getting a lot of the convex, or the convex, which is the rounded, I'm also hitting some of the concave, which is that, I guess the negatively rounded, you might say. And that helps to give it that wet look. So right now I'm just mainly hitting it and trying to gradiate it out from that, the main hot spot, where the light source hits. And here in a second I'm going to be going to the underside of this as well. I'm keeping this on a separate layer, and I'll show you why here in a minute. But what I usually do anytime I paint, I paint loads and loads of different layers. I'll go, new layer, new layer, new layer, and when I'm happy with something, I can merge it down. But until then, I just keep it as a separate layer. So yep, still going fast forward. I think I added a multiply layer right here because I wanted that to go a little bit darker in the shadow area, and then I'll merge that down. So I was happy with that immediately, and I merged that down. And then I'm getting back into the underside lighting. And it's not if you look at my color wheel, my colorist on the bottom right hand of the screen, it's not a total white. There's a little bit of blue in there. And I think I pushed this a little bit too far, so I end up with an eraser, and I erase it back again. I believe I do. Yeah, there I go. Yay! Good job, me. Yeah, you gotta encourage yourself sometimes. Because hey, there's nobody else here to do it, right? Okay, what am I doing? Am I just sitting here thinking about things? Is that it? That can't be it. What am I doing? Okay. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that white layer and I'm going to double it. I do Command J, and then I'm going to turn that to blue. So I colorize, move it to blue, and as you can see, it's starting to turn blue. So it's the exact same layer as the highlights, but it's been doubled, and I'm changing it to blue. And what I'll do in a second is when I get the blue that I want, I'm going to put that layer underneath the white layer. First, I'm going to move it slightly to the side. I zoomed in so you can kind of see this. But I take my V tool and I'm moving this down and a little bit to the left, kind of away from that light source. And then I'm going to move that layer underneath the white, just like that. And that kind of gives us, a little bit more realistic look. If you look at photos, everything's not absolutely perfectly white. You'll get these little blues in it, kind of like the sky and everything. And I'm going to blur that out a little bit. I may even mess with the opacity of the layer itself. I think I try different layer modes. Yeah, I try different layer modes, but I don't like them, so I end up using a normal blending layer mode, but then I think I lower the opacity. Yep, there we go. Pretty good. Yeah, that's a good job. I like that. It's pretty nice. And if I wanted, if I thought that the skin was too dark, then I could have faded that one right there out, the texture out a little bit more. But it's all in taste and all what you want to do. Looking back, I might have done that. I might have lightened that a little bit more, or used the mask and pulled it, erased it out a little bit more. So what I did here is I selected all my layers, I duplicated them, and then I merged that down to one layer, and then so I had one layer of the object and then another group where I still had all of my layers. and I put that into a group. And what that does is I can continue with the object as one layer. But if I ever mess up, I can just delete it and then start over again because I did not delete my original layers. So for something like this, that came in handy. I grab a color dodge brush. I lower my opacity, and I'm going to try to give this a little highlight. I was thinking about some blue, I think, in here, but I think, do I leave it at blue or do I go back to yellow? I'm not really sure. Yeah, add some yellow. Realize that my shape dynamics was still on. I think I start going around the sides as well, but I realized I did not have my transparency locked on. So I have to do some Control Z's. Now, there we go. I locked it, now I can get back in there. And this is not anything really big. Sorry, I keep scratching my nose. But this isn't really anything big, but it's like anything else. It's all these little things that add up. So I'm just trying to give it some color variation, some light around the sides. Yeah, it could be too bright. I'm pretty happy with it though. It looks neat. It looks wet. It looks bumpy. Looks like a pretty cool skin. Okay, so let's see, what am I doing now? Oh, I'm going to blur out the edges. Actually, I have a tool that I made. It says blur, but it allows me to do this by hand. Now you can do like an iris blur or a tilt shift blur or what have you, but sometimes I like to blur things out by hand. It gives me a little bit more control. If I want to do more blur here and then more or less, or I can just do it all by my stylus. So that's what I'm doing right now, is I'm going around the edge and I'm just kind of wiggling it, and it's blurring out that edge a little bit for me. So once again, another little trick to get that depth of field in there. The highlight being the most focused part, and as it goes away from you, it gets a little bit more out of focus. I'm not killing this with the. I mean, you can kill this with as much blur as you want, but I'm just really kind of hitting it a little bit, and then I come into the ball. And I hit it a little bit more with that. So, man, I hope this records. Oh man, if I don't, I'm gonna stab myself in the face with a soldering iron. Yeah, I'm going inside the ball a little bit now. Like I said, it's light touches. And right there, I wasn't hitting the inside, the highlighted part. I was just pointing out, because like I said, I was speaking while I was painting this. I was just pointing out that that middle part is the focal point. Okay, now I'm going to go to, let's see, an overlay. Yep, make sure my brush is set back to normal. And I think I'm just adding a little bit of the yellow, little variation of tone. Add another one, and then I go into my brushes, and I have like a little speckle brush, splatter brush, whatever you want to call those. And having a hard time finding something. And there we go, I found it. I was thinking about adding these specks, like light specks, but it didn't come out immediately the way I wanted. So what I ended up doing is I changed this to a multiply layer, and so it's dark. And then I darken it, because this wouldn't do anything as a multiply layer right now. So I lighten it and I zoom back in and I'm like, that's kind of junk. So I'm going to change that here in a minute. Yeah, still warping it, that same warp technique. And yeah, I was just moving it underneath that overlay layer, clip mask, and yeah, messing with it, and eventually I decide that I don't like it. So let's try multiply. And then I bring up the opacity again. And then I'm gonna have to do that Control U. There it is, darken it. There we go. And see, you get those little spots. I thought that was kind of cool. So I mess around with them for a second and I leave them in. Just, you know, another added little thing that you can do to add that more realistic feel to something. And that multiply allows it to, you can see through it and it blends a little bit. So once again, it's not a big thing. It's just something small, something little. I think I like that. I merge it down. And I think it's about time for the shadow. Is it? Yep. So for the shadow, I just duplicated the layer. I'm going to lower it, and then I squash it, and then I turn it black, and then I blur it. And that's really about it. So, guys, tell me if you enjoyed this. Hopefully the next time I do it, I can actually be talking while I'm painting, as it was kind of planned out. But if you like the idea of me doing some materials, please hit like, please comment, you know, share some of my videos. I'd appreciate it. Get me some more subscribers. Yay. But as always, you know, if you're interested in more of my stuff, I have a Patreon and a Gumroad. And otherwise, hope you guys subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. And if you have, as always, I appreciate it. And I thank you for the support. But I think that's about it with that. Otherwise, guys, I will see you next time. And I'm hoping that this, the recording worked this time. So thanks, guys. You guys take care.